So before I talk about disadvantages and workability of this new law that they would like to pass, a couple things first. James had talked about how banning smoking does not increase drunk driving. According to Century Council, in 120 counties where they actually did ban smoking, there's a large increase in the drunk driving fatalities. So for some statistics, okay, so the increase for fatality accidents in those 120 American counties was the 13% increase for fatalities. And accident rate that weren't fatalities, but just accidents, was an increase in 19%. And so the average fatality rate for drunk driving is roughly 2.1 for every 100,000 people. And if you take into account how many people there are in California, there are roughly 38 million. So when you multiply those together, there's roughly 799 fatalities due to DUIs every year. But with that 13% increase, it increases to 2.4 deaths every 100,000 people, and so that increases to 912 fatalities roughly, which would be an increase of roughly 144 deaths per year due to DUIs because the smoking was banned. Second, he talked about that you cannot eliminate all the secondhand smoke from the apartment. That is true, but there are many methods that you can take to reducing a lot of that. Some of the things you can do are you can seal a lot of air vents. A lot of air vents in a lot of apartments aren't actually used, so you can seal those off. You can also seal holes around electrical sockets or light fixtures, and you can also use a door draft excluder. Basically, it's like a rug or a carpet, something thick that goes beneath your main door. And in addition, you can put a fan to help blow and recirculate your apartment better to the outside. The next is he talks about a violation of human rights, or people's rights, about them being allowed to smoke in their own home. And something is, what if that owner is a smoker? The owner of the apartment lives there and he's a smoker. Does that mean that he cannot smoke in his own apartment? Would that be the same as him renting out parts of his house and he should be allowed to smoke in those parts? So really it shouldn't be outlawed for all apartments. It should be the owner's choice of whether he wants to ban it for his apartment. And if he doesn't, then people that complain, they can find another place to rent. And the last was that people won't always comply. And that's the case for everything, but that doesn't mean there aren't going to be cases where they don't comply. I don't think that a lot of people actively go out and tell their neighbors, you know, you're smoking and it's coming into my room, I want you to stop. A lot of people just kind of go with it, or they complain. So it may not work for all cases, but it's something they can try. So now I'm going to go to my disadvantages. The first is that the number of smokers that would have to either move out or quit smoking. So smoking, according to the California Department of Public Health, accounts for roughly 24% of the population. And there's roughly 6 million people in California that live in apartments. So that's roughly 1.5 million people that smoke in apartments that would either have to move or stop smoking. The problems with that is the time it takes. If they do decide to move out of the home, out of the apartment, it takes roughly at least 12 weeks to find a new place. So during that time, are they going to be allowed to stay in their apartments, or are they going to have to switch to somewhere else? The next is that revenue drops if people do stop smoking. What I mean by that is that the U.S. Grossed roughly $8.5 billion off of taxes off cigarettes, and the states roughly $15.7 billion. So not all of this would be lost, as not all the smokers would just stop smoking, but those that would stop smoking would reduce this revenue. Lastly is that those that do choose to stop smoking, according to NetDoctor, www.netdoctor, It takes roughly 12 weeks for the nicotine receptors in the brain to shut off. So during those 12 weeks, just like if they're trying to find a new house or a place to live, where are they going to stay for that time? And roughly, according to lung.org, it takes 6 out of 10 people when they first try to stop smoking do not actually succeed. So workability, a couple things are that people aren't just going to stop smoking cigarettes just because they're told to. Roughly 24% of 12th graders have used or are current users of marijuana, and there are roughly 86 marijuana arrests per hour. Marijuana is, obviously, it's illegal, not just outside, not just in an apartment, but anywhere, yet there's still tons of arrests, so people aren't stopping. Same thing with underage drinking. As of 1984, it was passed that anyone under 21 cannot drink alcohol, but a survey showed that high school students, roughly 39% of them, had a drink in the last 30 days. So obviously for that too, they're not stopping. So what is stopping people from disobeying this law and just smoking in their own apartments if they don't follow these other rules that even just out in public they can get caught smoking marijuana and drinking underage? Lastly is law enforcement. For law enforcement, there are a lot more problems that law enforcement has to go with. According to law enforcement today, 75% of senior law enforcement feel overwhelmed and do not need just another common day law to enforce. Basically, they don't need another task to go out and ticket people that are smoking in their own apartments. They don't need another, they don't have to go up to the doors and not, ask them, are you smoking in your apartment? They have other things. And so I hope with these things, you can see that trying to implement this won't always work.
Neil, just a reminder, you're next.